Our purpose at WE is to change the dismal statistics of our people, particularly Māori and Pacifica people. We do this through helping small and medium-sized businesses to thrive. Our businesses need our help. So many have felt the pressures of lockdown and are facing challenges that they've never faced before. Challenges that are impacting their livelihoods. That is why we're bringing you this series, to share stories of the people behind our businesses, their successes, their failures, their challenges, and their triumphs.
If you are already in business, we hope you will be inspired. Perhaps someone will share one piece of gold that makes a difference in your business. If you've been thinking about starting a business, we hope that you will be motivated to start your own business venture.
We hope that by sharing these stories, we can help small businesses on the road to recovery all across New Zealand, Australia, and the Pacific.
So grab your cup of tea and whakarongo mai. Kia ora te whānau, no mai, haere mai. Welcome to this evening's Cup of Tea with WE. Tonight we have with us Ray, who comes to us from his own consultancy company, A K Thomson Ltd, and also you might know him from My Rivr. So welcome, Ray. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Kia ora Talofa, and thank you very much for having me, sis.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about what it is that you do. So what does your consultancy company do, and what is My Rivr? Just for those who may not know.
Yeah. So my consultancy company, it's a family-owned business. My wife, Katrina, so she's the K in the company name. So she's Māori from Talaga Bay, Gisborne, out on the East Coast. And then myself, A K Akerei Maresala-Thomson. So our company specialises in running professional development workshops that focus on well-being, not only for staff, but also we deliver them into high schools. So recently we just launched a mentoring program into the high schools, which is made up of 3 different workshops. The first one is stress management. Second one is emotional intelligence. And the third one is our business course, which is basically entrepreneurship and emerging economies. But the whole theme of the 3 workshops, which is delivered over a 2-year period into high schools, is that it's about turning your adversity into opportunity. So your adversity can sometimes be the greatest asset in terms of getting yourself into a type of career that we can discuss later on down the track. And My Rivr, so My Rivr has been a key stepping stone into my career into business. So My Rivr is a not-for-profit NGO, which we founded about 3 years ago, me and some friends. And basically, it's the awareness arm of My Rivr Technologies, which is another company that some friends and I had started somewhat 5 years ago when I was still in New Zealand Police. So I'm still heavily involved with both My Rivr Technologies and Trust My Rivr, just doing some consultancy work with it and administration in the background.
Can I just say that I really love what you're doing in high schools around turning adversity into opportunity, because I think a lot of people see adversity as a step back and can look at it from a place of disadvantage. But actually, there are so many advantages in the learnings and the personal experiences that come from adversity, and I think that's incredible that you're teaching people to see that.
Yes, exactly. I remember growing up as an immigrant to New Zealand. I've been exposed to quite a lot of stuff, and I don't know when is the right time to mention it in our 30-minute kōrero, but if I can just give you a bit of a journey, which is basically why I created these programs into schools. So I'm a child sexual abuse survivor. So I was sexually abused in Samoa at the age of 4 before we came to New Zealand. The sexual abuse continued in New Zealand when one of those family members that abused me in Samoa travelled over to live with us. And because of that, you know, I didn't know where to turn to for help. I turned to my family, my parents. They didn't know how to deal with it, and I just got hidings because they thought I was being cheeky and making up stuff. I turned to my church. I got the same thing. I didn't know what sex was when I was quite young, and I didn't know who to turn to. All I knew was a young Samoan kid that grew up with the cultural respect of your elders and not to question authority, not to question your elders, and that everything that our elders say is right. And so, if you can imagine being a young, naive young man, you know, I was 5 when we first arrived in New Zealand. So, within our Pasifika culture, those are the 3 pillars of support, which is your family, your culture, and your faith. And if you can imagine being confused at being sexually abused, because nobody taught me what sex was, I didn't even know what sex was. And if you're trying to ask questions of your parents, you know, someone's doing this to me and I don't like it, I'm uncomfortable with it, I don't even know what it is. And you get hiding and you turn around to all those pillars and all you get is hidings. And then what do you do next? And sort of that sort of took me down a journey of self-preservation, I suppose. I was trying to find some sort of means of survival. I tried to approach my family again when I was 9. I think that was the last time I tried to sort of get the stuff off my chest because, you know, it wasn't doing too good for me at school. I was quite violent at primary school. I remember punching a kid for nothing at a tuck shop when I was about 7 or 8. And then my mum came down, saw the principal, beat me up in front of the principal and all my other friends and this girl that I had a crush on. Beat me up in front of them, took me home. And then the next week I was starting a new school at Mangere, Ngā Iwi Primary. So I went from East Tamaki Primary, Ngā Iwi Primary. And then the same thing happened. I punched another kid. And anyway, I was just very angry, frustrated. But what I picked up from that experience is that those 3 pillars of support that I talked about. If you turn to your family, you know, for solace, for support, and they didn't know what to do and beat you up, you turn to the other 2 pillars, which is your faith and your culture, and they just beat you up and do the same thing and tell you you can't say that, or that person's a chief and he's one of the reasons why we're here in New Zealand, and you'll be ungrateful. You know, it's quite taxing and emotionally. It plays on you. And so after that last time I approached my mum and dad and told them about it, and they gave me another hiding, probably 5 minutes after that I just walked out of the house and straight on to Preston Road. So our house was on Preston Road, and I just walked out on the road because at the time, back in the 80s, Preston Road had the highest fatality rates of any road in New Zealand. So I knew that, you know, if I was to commit suicide, then that was my quickest way out. And I failed. I failed in that first attempt, and I failed again later on. But that took me down a path of youth gangs. I didn't want to join gangs, but my uncles were the leaders of a local youth gangs, and I liked the camaraderie that they had. I liked that they supported each other, and it was something that I was missing, you know, in my time of need. So, but the thing that stuck out was if your own close network of support isn't willing to support you, or you know, provide you that sort of support or somebody to talk to, then where else do you turn to? And so that sort of led to later on in my career in the police. I had some good people around me later on from the churches that reached out, and they knew that I'd gone to 4 high schools. So I went to a couple of primary schools. Then I went to 4 high schools in New Zealand. I got sent back to Samoa. It didn't go down too well over there either, and I got sent back. But so all of that happened, and whilst all of that happened later on in my life, I had some good people supporting me. They saw some raw talent in me. They saw that whilst I was angry and wanted to have a fight, they also saw that I also can offer something to the world, and that came through professional sports. I got into a bit of rugby, started training hard. I had some good support around me. I had some people offer me a job that worked around my trainings and the rugby games on the weekend, and sort of one thing led to the other, and I ended up in France, Northern Ireland, Wales, and England playing professional rugby. And so I brought all of that back home and decided to get into the police because I felt that my adversity, there was a lot of value that I could offer into the police, that I help kind of bridge the relationship between the policing organisation, which historically has had a bad rep, in the community that I grew up in. But so the police could learn a bit more about how to better approach and engage in our Māori and Pasifika people. But equally, I can learn a lot from the New Zealand police that I can take back home to my village, my church, my family, to educate them around ways to get out of getting into trouble. So I guess in terms of my journey, I'm now using my story to help connect with young people through these workshops that's designed to build resilient, confident young people, but also young people that are not afraid to be creative and innovative in their thinking. Because I never studied IT, but we've won several IT awards, both here and overseas. I've never been an academic, but I've gone to 4 high schools and got kicked out of all these different high schools and got sent back to Samoa. But I think my resilience actually allowed me to change the game up a bit in terms of the health and social services landscape, that we were able to use our own Indigenous ideas, our own ideas that were shaped and created through our resilience, through a lot of adversity, to really scale things up, because we're not only working here in New Zealand with My Rivr, we're also engaged in contracts with Washington, D.C. and Florida and a host of other nations overseas. So, but yeah, I think our resilience, a lot of people look at our background and think that we're failures, but our resilience is actually decentralizing the whole system at the moment. You can take our lands, you can take our culture and our language, but the one thing that you'd be hard pressed to take, and that is our IP. And that's why it's very, very important for me to start normalizing the conversation now into our high schools about the potential to be your own master, captain of your own ship. I think we tend to ask kids what career they want to get into, and then straight away we've kind of limited and pigeonholed them into either being a doctor or a nurse. Why can't we just ask kids or students, what problems do you want to solve? And I think that there's a difference in how that can shape their thinking, because straight away by telling them what problems they want to solve, you're going in a lot deeper than what we normally pigeonhole our kids. Then all of a sudden you've put them in the position of, well, I can actually create I can actually solve the problem for COVID-19. Why can't our kids, think that big? And I think traditionally we've just been sort of feeding into them that, getting a 9-to-5 job, that's all you're good at. But our kids are bigger than that. And part of our program is we connect and weave this program, these workshops that we deliver into high schools, back to our time as the greatest navigators in history. We still are. Polynesian people are the greatest navigators in history. I mean, you can't be the greatest in history for over 3,000 years of navigating all these islands with no app, just with the ability to read the stars and signs, without being experts in science, technology, engineering, and maths. And I think this is what a lot of our kids are missing, is that how can we weave these stories to make our kids connected to the fact that we can operate in this field of STEM, because at the moment, a lot of our young people still believe STEM or business ownership is just for our Palangi brothers and sisters, our Asian brothers and sisters. So we weave those stories in to highlight to our kids that, it's in your DNA. Your ancestors were the greatest navigators in history, and they were the masters of science, technology, engineering, and maths. And then we also use case studies of people like Sarah Cole, around how she pivoted her business and her career as a result of COVID-19. She had some bad runs the last 12 months or 2 years or so. But look at the innovation that she brought in, and now she runs the largest social media group in New Zealand, and has also got that big tick from Facebook for the work that she's done, and she's helping a whole bunch of businesses across the country. We've also got the young, another case study that we use on our workshop is a young boy named Josh Nanai 685. I don't know if you recall him and his success. I think his parents used to growl him for being too noisy in the garage or in the room with his music. And now his music is the beat that he made for Jason Derulo is the #1 song, in the world. We've got another young boy, Samoan boy from Avondale College that went to Brazil 2 years ago, competed with over 120 countries, and he won the World Championships for the Microsoft Excel project thing that they have to build all these spreadsheet programs, and he won it. So it is within our grasp, and that's why I think our program is very, very important. But equally, we're not only just talking about business ownership. There's a heavy well-being component. We can talk about suicide and domestic violence all we want, but at the end of the day, economics plays a huge part in us getting better access to education, better access to health, and whatnot. And I think the normalizing of that discussion that our kids can be business owners will help to bridge that gap between the haves and have-nots.
I totally agree with you on so many different points that you've just mentioned. Like, can I just first of all commend you on your resilience? And, when you talk about adversity to opportunity, like you're the pillar of that. And I think that it's really awesome that you're going out to schools and you're sharing your story with our tahi and helping them to see what they can become. Because you're so right, like our ancestors, they were navigating mathematicians. Those aren't the stories that you hear about Māori and Pacifica people anymore. Every time you turn on the TV, there's some robbery or something, and they're always naming Māori and Pacifica people. And that's part of the reason that we decided to do Kapu Tī with WE. We're like, we just need to start telling our own stories and sharing what really is out there. One of the problems that I've found, and you may have found this too, and I don't know what the answer is other than us just to continue to do these things, is that our people are just so whakamā, like too scared, too shamed, too shy, too humble to share stories and to be seen as role models and to say, hey, look at what I'm doing. What do we do? How do we stop that?
Yeah, and I've come across the same thing. But so the way we approached this program, because we generally spend 4 to 5 months overseas with our work with My Rivr. But with the introduction of COVID-19, that basically halted everything. So we were supposed to be in Italy for 2 weeks this month, running workshops over there. And so what I did was I just did just to test the market, see if there was any interest in the program that focused on well-being, because I saw there's a lot of support for companies, for businesses. I saw there was support for wage subsidies, but there was very little support for our young people. And as you probably are aware, there's a lot more of our young people who've left university because mum and dad lost their jobs, and so they have to find work to help put food on the table and a roof over their heads. And even Pukekohe High School, where we're delivering our program at the moment, there's a lot of kids who are clocking out of school early to go and do some money to help mum and dad. So one of the things that we do, because we present our program to the Pasifika whānau of the Pasifika students, and we said to them that, look, are you going to be happy that, in terms of our legacy, that you came over 50 years ago, we were on the plantations, picking onions and picking strawberries and picking apples, and we're on the factory floor, we can understand that we had to do that because that's all we had at the moment. It was actually, that was the phase 1, then phase 2, phase 3. We're now almost phase 4, and we're still doing the same thing. And what we asked was, are you going to be happy at just looking at the number of our people still queuing up at work and income? Are you going to be happy still looking at people still queuing up for emergency shelter? Because that's what I believe has tripped us over when we came to New Zealand, is that we've become so reliant on this endless tap of support that we forgot to be the entrepreneurs, the scientists, the technicians, the engineers, the mathematicians, from back in our days that are still today the greatest navigators in history. So I think it's important that, and why I think there's been a lot more acceptance of our program is that it wasn't just for young people. We were also providing the support to. We're also currently providing the support to their families, their parents, because they need to buy. The students need the buy-in of their families as well. So, but yes, the whakamā thing, I think it's always going to be there. But that's why I think it's very, very important that any program, it's about repetition. Cultures, languages are shaped by repetition. And people always go on about cultures and tradition, but cultures and traditions evolve. And that's because new things come in, new influences come through, internal, external, whatever. But that's always going to evolve. But I think in terms of us getting to that stage where we are in a healthy economic space, I think it starts from actually changing that conversation now. That conversation that's the ethos of our program, which is what problem do you want to solve? And then once we understand that, then we bring the holistic support around the young people. And that's why I find the videos of your Kapu Tī program is very, very, is critical because they're seeing and hearing live from our own people, some of their journeys and how some of the resilience that they may have felt was a problem, but has been the one thing that's actually made them successful today. And I think that's how our kids and our people in general operate. We don't sort of operate too well by looking at somebody's flash car and the millions that they made. We look at all the bad things that they went through and how they overcome that. And I think that's the first step of normalizing this conversation, that you can be anything that you want to be.
I totally believe that. And I think I love what you said. What problem do you want to solve? Because that's all business is, really. There's a problem and you've got a solution to it, and that adds value to somebody else's life, and then therefore they will exchange money, because that's our tender at the moment, for that service to help solve the problem that you are solving. And it's quite basic, really.
Yes. Yeah, it's quite basic, but it wasn't until, because I, having worked in the New Zealand Police, I was delivering all these programs, and one of my portfolios was managing the domestic violence program over in the Pacific. But, managing all that money, that I had the blessing of actually having a team to actually manage a whole lot of that stuff. So I had a team of HR people. I had a team of the finances that did all of that. But being in your own business, I kind of just fell into this because I started getting interested in how I can make work around me as opposed to the other way around. I think we were so fixed on the same 9 to 5 or whatever work routine. But I was looking at how my parents coped with that when they when we were growing up in Aotearoa. My mother died of a stroke at the age of 54. My dad had 3 heart attacks during that time, and there was endless bills, and we didn't really spend much time together. I had a 12-year-old sister who was trying to look after us, in a new country, whilst both my parents were working 3 jobs, and so I think their expectations of New Zealand was far from the land of milk and honey that they were sold. They didn't know anything about financial literacy. They didn't know anything about taxes, and so And by that time, it was too late. My dad got arrested several times for drink driving. He crashed his car several times. There was a whole lot of domestic violence. They were all talking about church and, being godly Christian people. And all this time, people like me were being sexually abused under their own, roof. And so that sort of really opened my eyes up about, and when I was traveling overseas for work, doing God's work, trying to save the world, nobody was actually saving my wife, who was at home with my kids. I was missing key milestones. I was away a lot trying to save the world, and nobody was really saving my family. So when I resigned from the police and got into My Rivr and started working there, it started opening up my eyes around, how money works and how I can use that to my advantage. I mean, now, when I was in the police 7 years ago, I got accepted for a master's program with the Australian Institute of Business, but I couldn't afford to do it because it would have cost me $28,000. I also applied here this year, and I was told the first year was free. I still had to come up with $30,000 for the next 2 years. So then I spoke to my accountant and looked at some options over in London, and I'm now on my last assignment, 12,000 word dissertation, which is focused on mental health and its impact on productivity. And that cost me less than $10,000, and it's all the Nexus meets the requirement that shows that by completing this masters, I can write it under my business, as it'll attract more contracts towards my business. But little things like that, and being able to claim 10% of your the area of your house towards your office, your business expenses and stuff. Little things like that our families aren't aware about, and that's why I think sometimes learning as you go is pretty good, because that's what I'm finding myself, and it's working for my family. And because I'm I'm home now. I've been home for the last year and a bit. My kids' health is getting better. My health is getting better. I'm attending a lot more of their stuff. Their education is getting better. Their reading is getting better. So, and I think in the long run, that's what I'm hoping, that these conversations and normalizing these conversations with our young kids now, is that they can see the benefits that we can make work for us, as opposed to the other way around.
There's so many benefits to being in business that really supports family and all of the things that are important to us as Māori and Pacifica people. And it's just, I think, that confidence in knowing, what problem it is that you're going to solve. That's such a basic thing to start off with, and then you can work around from there. And you're right, we can be solving COVID. We can be creating platforms where there's hundreds of thousands of people on there making money. And I just want to touch on something that you've mentioned a couple of times. I do get a little disappointed that as Māori Pacific Islanders, as New Zealanders, we have to go over for the support that we need to be able to do the work that we're doing, because they see the benefit of it. That's really frustrating and sad, to say the least.
Well, it definitely is. It's our last trip overseas, we were paid for by Washington DC to go and run a workshop in Qatar, and talk to them about our child sexual abuse program, but also educate the professors who actually study the stuff around how to engage Indigenous communities. And the thing I don't understand is, so over the last 12 months, I've been invited to speak in Argentina, Honolulu, San Diego, and Qatar. And the team in My Rivr, we all went. But these guys absolutely love our Māori and Pasifika and Indigenous ideas, and they sing our praises. But over here, you can't even have a te wiki o te reo Māori without somebody being angry, about even the suggestion of it, which is very, very bizarre. But New Zealand, in terms of the initiatives that Māori and Pasifika Indigenous initiatives that are being rolled out. They absolutely love it over there. But hey, but the thing is, the good thing is it shows us that we're a lot bigger than some of the tall poppy syndrome that's happening over here, which is a good thing for us because it means that we've got other options. And that's basically what some of the things that we encourage other business owners that we have discussions with or mentor, is that don't always just look at New Zealand as your one source of funding. There's, the world has over 7 billion people. If you can attract just a minuscule fraction of a percent of that 7 billion, there's enough to get you ticking over a 12-month period or possibly your lifetime.
It's so true. It's an incredible time to be a Māori or Pacifica person.
Yes.
The world is just hungry for what we have. And so, yeah, and you're right, that is a great blessing. What a beautiful opportunity for us to expand our wings and to be even bigger and make a bigger difference and solve more people's problems. And if that's outside of Aotearoa, then that's outside of Aotearoa.
Exactly. We were doing like applications for grants here for like 3 years, and we're writing all these big long-winded business plans and grants applications and tenders. We got nothing. I went over to San Diego in 2017 and just met a professor from Washington DC. We spoke for like an hour. 5 weeks later, we got around $500,000 of funding. And so sometimes you just got to venture out of your comfort zone, and when one door shuts, there's possibly hundreds of thousands of other doors waiting for you. And so that's just built onto the success that we've got now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ray, before we finish up for the evening, looking back on your journey, and oh my gosh, you've shared so much already, but is there anything else that you'd like to leave with anybody that's listening today? Anything that you have learnt that you think would be good for somebody else to learn or know about?
Oh, yeah, just that everybody has got value to contribute to the world. Everybody is sitting on an idea that can change the face of the earth, and so I encourage you, if you've got an idea, talk to people that you trust, or get some advice about turning your idea either to a course, which is what I've basically done. I've turned my life into a course. And also, there's a quote. I can't remember the person who said the quote, but basically, it's not every storm comes to destroy your life. Some comes to clear your path, and that's basically speaks to basically my life journey. Is that a whole lot of stuff that I wasn't too happy with has basically cleared the way for me to start changing lives positively now by sharing my story.
What an incredible quote. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for being with us this evening and sharing your story and so much wisdom, and for the work that you're doing with our rangatahi, both here and abroad. Thank you once again, Ray, for being with us this evening.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for also sharing these videos, because we share these videos in class to the students that we're working with. So I appreciate it. Thank you guys very much.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing them. So everyone, whānau, we'll see you tomorrow night, 8 p.m. back in Kapu Tī with WE. Mā te wā. Thank you again, Ray.